Welcome to the 2020 Zero Emission Bus Conference. I'm Dan Raudebaugh. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Transportation and the Environment. This is the first of 6 sessions that we'll be going over in the next couple of days. This first session, you can see the title screen, is a very packed session, so just a couple of housekeeping notes. There will be no time for questions afterwards, and all presentations for each of our 6 sessions will be available to everybody that wishes to download them after the conference is over. So let's get started. Before we start today, I would like to talk a little bit about the history of the Zero Emission Bus Conference. CT has been operating this conference since 2011. Our first meeting was in New Orleans. I think we had 45 people there, maybe 25, 30 were presenting at the time. And we've grown this conference steadily over the years. In Hamburg, I think we had about 175 folks attend. In London, I think we had over 200, LA over 300, and then last year in San Francisco, we had over 500 attendees. And we're very, very proud of the growth of this. I think that shows the excellent work that Lauren Justice, our development director, and the rest of her staff have done getting the word out about this conference, but also the growth of the market itself. We have kept this conference to just buses. We will continue to keep this conference to just zero emission buses. We are not going to expand it to other vehicle types because we don't want to water down the content. So this year, for our virtual 2020 online conference, we have over 1,300 people registered and hopefully 1,300 people out there listening to me today. So it's a big market, it is growing, and welcome to it if this is the first time that you've been with us. Our next meeting will be in person in Denver in September. We hope to see everybody that's attending today there. We will have buses there, we'll have multiple sessions, multiple pathways, and we'll be talking about multiple markets as well. So we are looking forward to that. So before we get started with the conference today, I do want to talk about why we're here and why zero emission buses are important. And I know there's dozens of reasons that people are out there listening to me now, but the 3 that I want to highlight and the 3 I want to talk about are air quality, US jobs, and climate change. So first is air quality. I've been doing this for 25 years, and air quality is what brought me in, protecting the environment and cleaning the air. Criteria pollutants that come out of diesel exhaust and gasoline exhaust, especially in urban areas, do affect lung health. This is not a contested issue. Higher rates of asthma, more health problems associated with being exposed to this exhaust. Zero emission buses solve that problem. And we also know, as we meet virtually in times of COVID-19, that people with lung issues are more susceptible to this and other viruses. So these technologies not only help clean the air, but they do help make you more resilient to these type of viruses and this disease. And these diseases disproportionately affect minority and poor populations in urban areas where a lot of these transit buses and school buses operate. The second is US jobs. And I think there's a couple things going on around the world that you should be aware of. First, the European Union just recently announced that they are investing literally billions of dollars in renewable hydrogen and hydrogen infrastructure to support transportation in Europe, because they are very much aware of the change that needs to be happening, and they're investing in it. In China, there are 420,000 electric buses operating. To compare that to what we have in the US, for battery electric buses, we have about 1,000. So you can see that this market is a global market, and this is technology that is happening. And our choice in the US is either to build it here, manufacture it here, develop it here, or to import that technology and give away all those high-tech jobs to other countries around the globe. And the third issue I want to talk about is climate change. And climate change, unfortunately, in the US is a bit of a political issue now. And as a executive director of a nonprofit, if you allow me a minute to get on my soapbox. I'm an engineer. We're a lot of engineers at CTE. We went to school with scientists. We're STEM kids growing up, and we do believe the science. And just want to point out a couple things. First off, the wildfires that are happening in Oregon and California right now are not a coincidence. 6 of the largest 20 fires ever to burn in the state of California are burning as I talk to you now. The increased number and the sheer power of the hurricanes that we've seen over the last 15 years are not a coincidence. We had the most number of named storms in July of this year than we've ever had in a July of any year, and we expect to have, I think they're projecting 25 named storms this year, which would be an all-time record. And then the heat itself is something that's undeniable. We just got out of July 2020. It's the 2nd hottest month on record on the globe. It's tied for the second hottest with July of 2016, and it's only 0.02 degrees cooler than July of 2015. So 3 of the hottest months have occurred in the last 4 or 5 years during July. So, and I think that 5 of the warmest years in the history of the globe have occurred since 2015. So I don't believe these things are a coincidence. I don't think that most of you, I think most of you recognize that they're not a coincidence, and that these technologies not only clean the air, they not only create US jobs, but they do fight climate change. And we think these technologies will make a difference in fighting climate change and cleaning the air. And it's not just the technologies, it's the people that work on them. It's the passionate young folks on my staff, and it's everybody listening here today that are out there trying to make a difference and change the world. Moving to the next slide, just want to give you just a minute about CTE if I can. I won't go over this slide in too much detail, but you can see we're a national organization in the US. We've got multiple offices. We've done a lot of work. But what I want to talk about is our mission is really centered around creating technologies that allow you to make a difference without having to sacrifice or abstain from any of the activities you're used to. We want you to get there just as fast and just as easily as you always have. We think the technology is available today to solve the issues with climate change and the issues with clean air in the urban areas in the US. So at CTE, every nonprofit has a vision of the world. If you're a nonprofit and you're fighting cancer, your vision is no more cancer. And if you achieve your vision, then you cease to exist. Our vision at CTE is to have a carbon-free transportation system in the US, and we think it's doable. And that's the things that we're working on. And I think it's important to note that we're doing that through the development of technology. We're engineers, we're planners. We want to develop technology that will allow you to do the work without sacrifice. And I think that associated with this technology are high-tech US jobs, high-paying, that should be available to everyone of all races, creeds, or colors in the US. So we're really passionate about what we do, and we hope that that comes through over the next 3 days. So the last thing I'll talk about CTE before I pass it on is this is our projects. And I'll talk a little bit more about this Thursday morning in the policy session. You'll see that we have projects all across the US. I think we're the #1 provider of these services, not only in the US, but in the world. We develop prototype vehicles. We help with smart deployments. We help with folks that are transitioning to a complete zero-emission fleet. And of course, we do things like we're doing today, education and outreach as well. So enough about CT. We have a very packed session here. We have a big panel. First, I want to thank Proterra for sponsoring this session. Proterra is a company that CT has been working with since their inception. Jack Allen, the CEO of Proterra, has got a few remarks about what Proterra is doing, and then we have an exciting announcement of a new product from Proterra following that. So I'll turn it over to Jack now. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be with you at the start of this year's International Zero Emission Bus Conference. Thank you to the Center for Transportation and the Environment and to Dan Raudebaugh for having me here today. I'm excited to be with you to kick off your conference and to share a very exciting announcement later on this morning about Proterra's transit vehicles. CTE was one of Proterra's earliest champions. You supported our very first zero-emission transit bus more than a decade ago. And thanks to the leadership of CTE, more and more fleet operators around the globe are adopting zero-emission technology and moving towards clean transportation fleets. I want to take this moment to congratulate CTE for convening the very first all-virtual conference, which will also feature zero-emission school buses for the first time. Really one of the most exciting areas for electrification. I'd also be remiss if I did not open by acknowledging the challenging and unprecedented year that we are all facing. The COVID-19 pandemic has upended the lives of families around the globe. Yet through these hardships, it has also demonstrated the essential role that transit plays in our communities. Proterra is proud to support more than 120 customers across North America, including transit agencies, airports, universities, and commercial operators. You are delivering an essential service to our riders day in and day out. So thank you for your dedication and service to our communities. At the same time, COVID-19 has highlighted the link between clean air and public health. Transportation remains one of the leading sources of air pollution. We've seen in places like Los Angeles, where earlier this year, the once smog-filled skies cleared as people sheltered in place in the early days of COVID-19. It is in this backdrop that the importance of zero-emission transportation has never been clearer. Today, we are at a critical juncture. We can and must go further in accelerating the switch to zero-emission transportation. Delivering clean, quiet transportation for all is an opportunity to meet the needs of our communities while protecting our environment and public health, particularly for those who are at the most risk from the threat of pollution. Cities, states, schools, airports, and so many more are responding to this moment by advancing bold and ambitious targets to accelerate the switch to 100% clean transportation fleets. From California to New York, Toronto to Chicago, communities are going all in on 100% zero-emission transportation. New technology is making the promise of fully electric fleets a reality. The benefits of this transition are clear. For example, every time a Proterra battery electric bus with zero tailpipe emissions replaces a diesel bus, greenhouse gas emissions of 230,000 pounds are avoided. Battery electric buses offer the best total cost of ownership, the lowest operating costs when compared to combustion engine vehicles. Transitioning to clean transportation is no longer just the right thing to do for our health and environment, it's also the smart thing to do for our communities. At Proterra, we're even going further and faster to deliver clean, quiet transportation for all. We're partnering with world-class manufacturers like Thomas Built Bus, Von Hool, Daimler, Optimal EV, and BusTech to power all electric school buses, coaches, delivery vans, and other 100% battery electric commercial vehicles around the world with Proterra's industry-leading technology. We're introducing new, safe, reliable battery technology now in new flexible configurations to power a wide range of heavy-duty commercial vehicles. And we're investing in charging infrastructure and energy fleet solutions that play such a critical role in achieving important electrification goals. You know, it was just a few short years ago, many were questioning whether the transit market would move towards electrification. Well, that question has been answered. This transition to electric transportation is well underway. Take Edmonton, Alberta, Canada as an example. This summer, Proterra, along with our partners, Edmonton Transit Service, or ETS, unveiled the first of 21 Proterra battery electric buses, one of the largest purchases of electric buses in Canadian history. It represented the first deployment to implement in-depot overhead charging in North America, along with having the most energy storage on any 40-foot electric bus. The ETS deployment showcases just how we can successfully implement an electric bus fleet and charging infrastructure for our current fleet needs, as well as plan for the expansion in the near future. We're very proud to partner with ETS to deliver clean, quiet transportation to Edmonton. What started a decade ago with the delivery of the first Proterra battery electric bus has grown into a transportation revolution as communities switch to 100% clean, zero-emission fleets. This month, Proterra is celebrating a decade of experience delivering our industry-leading battery electric transit buses. And we're only getting started as we join with all of you in ushering in a new era for zero-emission transportation. That's why today, I am excited to introduce for the very first time Proterra's newest battery electric transit bus, the Proterra ZX5. The Proterra ZX5 battery electric transit bus offers unmatched drive range with the most battery storage on any 40-foot electric bus available today. Faster acceleration, greater horsepower, and industry-leading hill climbing abilities to tackle steep terrain. Thanks to our early adopters, Proterra has helped drive the industry towards clean, quiet transportation. We've sold and delivered more battery electric buses in North America than any other manufacturer. Our fleet has been proven and more than 13 million serviced miles driven across the United States and Canada. And we're extending our best-in-class electric vehicle technology to power other medium and heavy-duty commercial vehicles through our Proterra powered program. But still, we have a long road ahead of us, but there's no turning back. Proterra is proud to join all of you in this journey as we work towards our collective goal of clean, healthy communities driven by zero-emission transportation. The time for clean transportation is now. Thanks to all of you, and enjoy the conference. Have a good day.
Thank you, Jack. And as Jack mentioned, and as I mentioned briefly,
Good morning, everyone.
We have a brief video that's going to follow that will show you a little bit more about the ZX5 product that Proterra is announcing today.
We designed the new ZX5 with the customers in mind.
This project touched most of the systems on the bus, including the bus body, the chassis.
There's a lot of work that went in to ensure that we have smooth accelerations, smooth decelerations, but we still react quickly.
The ZX5 has greater energy capacity due to battery storage on the roof of the bus.
And that is increasing the range for our customers.
We started with almost a blank slate with lessons learned from the previous product and basically designing each and every functionality of the bus.
As a chassis engineer, I get to work on the axles, the ride height system. I was moonlighting in the powertrain department. So what that means is that we have a bus that's more comfortable, a bus that's safer, a bus that handles better.
We don't really want the customer to ever have any issues. So the only way to do that is for us to find them before the customer does.
What we strive for is zero defects.
I want to see that what I'm working on actually makes a difference in the world.
Innovating is just part of our DNA at Proterra.
Okay, I'd like to introduce our moderator for our panel today, Matt Boothe. Matt's an electrical engineer that works for CTE. I think he's been working for CTE for about 5 years. I think I've known Matt for 25 years. He's built a couple fuel cell buses in project with us, and we finally lured him over to work with us. So Matt, I'm gonna pass it on to you and let you introduce the panel.
Thanks, Dan, and welcome to Zero, everybody. I'm super excited to be here, but I'm even more excited about who we've got with us today. We've got Walter Kirkland. He's the service manager at StarMetro. We've got Doug Francis, the Associate Transportation Director of Gaylord Community Schools in Michigan. We've got Serenity Anderson, the General Manager of Bus Operations from FirstTransit, and they're operating at the Sacramento International Airport. I guess I should have mentioned with Walter, StarMetro is in Tallahassee, Florida. So they serve Tallahassee, Leon County, and Florida State University. So what we're going to be talking about today is this cross-platform, this wide variety of customers that we have for these buses. So we have a transit agency, which we're used to dealing with at CTE anyway. And I'm really excited that we have a school district because we haven't worked a lot with school districts yet. And I think that's the next big thing. And we have an airport. And all three of these operators are already operating battery electric buses. So what we're looking at today is what are the challenges that are remaining for these operators to be able to get to 100% zero emission fleets. So along the way, we may hear some differences about how each fleet, the needs of each fleet, based on the airport or the school or the city bus setting. So, and then after that, in alphabetical order, we're gonna have panelists respond to those needs. We're gonna have Nate Baguio, Vice President of Sales for Lion Electric. We're gonna have Brian Pollock, Business Development Manager at Siemens. We're gonna have Cash Sethi, Vice President of Sales at Motive Power Systems. John Walsh, Senior Vice President of Sales at Proterra. And Michael Wegasani, Business Development Manager for the Americas at Heliox. There's not gonna be any Q&A, audience Q&A for this session just because we're so packed to the gills with content and speakers. So let's get right to it. Walter Kirkland, StarMetro. Tell us a little bit about your operation down there.
Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. StarMetro provides fixed route transit service and paratransit service to the city of Tallahassee, Leon County, and Florida State University. We were an early adopter with the zero emission bus technology back in 2012. We have the City Commission has passed a clean energy resolution with goals of 100% renewable energy by 2050 for the city. And StarMetro's goal is to have a fully 100% electric fixed route fleet by 2035. StarMetro and FSU, Florida State University, operate the largest electric fleet on any college campus in the state of Florida. Next slide, please. Our fleet consists of 15 Proterra XR Plus 35-foot buses with 4 of the Proterra BE models, which are 35-foot. We currently have one 50 kilowatt Eaton depot charger and 5 60 kilowatt Proterra depot chargers. We have one 750 kilowatt Eaton on-route charger and 2 500 kilowatt Proterra on-route chargers. Our diesel and CNG fleet consists of 35 diesel buses, 35 and 40 feet, 12 CNG 30 and 35 foot buses, and 20 Ford CNG paratransit cutaways. Next slide, please. Our bus performance and duty cycle, our longest route that we have currently with the electric fleet is 182 miles, and it runs from 4:30 in the morning till about 10:30 at night. And the longest city route that we have is about 258 miles with about the same duration. Next slide, please. The challenges that we see to the 100% electrification are, number one, range of the current battery electric buses. They don't support the current routes without that on-route charging. We want to get away from the on-route charging. Currently, the on-route charging requires precise planning when you're using multiple routes using a single charger. And any issue you run into is going to amplify your on-time performance. Rapidly advancing technology makes it kind of hard for long-range planning for the buses and even the charging infrastructure for charging the whole fleet. Reliability issues with chargers is another thing that affects the ability to meet pullout the next day or to continue to run if you're doing on-route charging. If you're having to supply mutual aid to other agencies, there's no way to fuel an electric bus if you have to take a ride. So portable charging solutions are something that we're hoping to see in the near future. We understand that depot charging with about 25 pantographs top-down charge heads is going to be difficult with a gantry system. We're hoping someone can work out the bugs in that. That'll allow us to maintain the same kind of parking structure that we have now and the same kind of route around our yard. Any kind of backup power from loss of the grid during a natural disaster is going to be an issue. And with the paratransit vehicles, we need to find us a van that meets Buy America requirements and the range requirements that we have currently. Competitive funding for infrastructure and replacement buses is another hurdle. And I'll pass that back to Matt.
Thanks, Walter. And next up is Doug Francis from Gaylord Community Schools.
Hello, everyone. I'm from Gaylord Community Schools in Gaylord, Michigan. I'm a public school system. Our mission is to safely transfer students on school buses with the awareness of the carcinogens coming out of the exhaust pipe. When our buses are parked at schools loading or unloading students, we make our best attempt to turn the engines off. We have had diesel, gas, and propane buses. I have personally breathed the fumes of these buses for 38 years, and now I have asthma. Gaylord Community Schools is the first district in Michigan to receive electric school buses through the Michigan Association for Pupil Transportation, EGLE, Michigan's Environmental Protection Agency, and the Volkswagen Mitigation Fund. The city of Gaylord, Michigan is one of the first cities to install charging stations downtown. That's both fast charge and slow charge. Next slide, please. We have 2 E-Line electric 71 passenger school buses with 2 level 2 Clipper Creek slow charge stations on site. We have 27 72 77 passenger school buses, 17 international engines, and 10 Cummins diesel engines. Our inventory consists of 2008 to 2020 school buses, which our E-Line buses are 2020s. Next slide, please. Our longest route, our district is basically 260 square miles. Our longest route consists of 45 miles twice a day. Our route times are from 6:15 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. in the morning and 1:45 p.m. to 4:15 p.m. in the afternoon. We have, under normal times, we'd have shuttles all day. One of our shuttles runs 53 miles a day and never leaves the city limit. We do have out-of-town trips from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. with a range of 175 mile long distance from us. And through the summer, we run several routes for summer school. Next slide, please. Our current range of units is functional with management. Improvement battery technology will be beneficial for range. Again, with 90-mile-a-day routes, doesn't really give us much room. We have a 125-mile range, but we do manage our power. The charging costs have been higher than expected. Basically the same as the diesel per mile for a school bus. Excuse me. We 26 and 27 cents a mile for either gas or electric or diesel, I'm sorry. I think more public education is needed. Otsego County at one time was the 3rd or 4th largest oil and gas producing counties in the US. More grant money is needed to offset the initial investment. And I think it'd be good if we could, instead of having public schools upfront the full cost of the vehicles, if somehow we could restructure the grants so that the schools didn't have to make the initial investment. And our power company infrastructure and our facility would need upgrades if we were to add more than our 2 current electric buses.
All right, thanks, Doug. And by the way, Lion has over 300 school buses on the road right now. So that's pretty exciting. That's, you know, a lot of us have worked in transit so long, and seeing the school bus sides starting to really take off is super exciting for us. So Serenity, can you tell us what's happening at Sacramento Airport with FirstTransit?
Yes, good morning. Here at the Sacramento Airport, we provide service to our rental car center as well as all the parking lots here. With FirstTransit and First Group in general, we are one of the largest providers of transit, paratransit, school bus, and shuttle service in the U.S. So we definitely have a large stake in the zero emissions bus market. At the Sacramento International Airport, we take our customer service very seriously, and a large part of that is our shuttle bus experience. While we are mandated by California Air Resource Board to be 100% electric by 2035, we're very excited to be at the leading edge of that change. Next slide. Our current fleet consists of 5 Proterra Catalyst 35-foot buses. We have an additional 5 40-foot Catalyst buses on order. We currently have 4 in-depot 60-watt chargers, and we have 125-watt chargers on order for our coming buses. The remainder of our fleet consists of 30 Eldorado Easy Rider CNG buses and 1 Ford Cutaway CNG bus. Some of the challenges and some of the performance issues that we are trying to meet are, we are a 24/7 location. 2/3 of our fleet must run 24 hours a day. Well, with that, we run approximately 340 miles on those 24-hour runs. And the other third of our fleet still is mandated to run approximately 13 hours. So definitely some different climate that we're dealing with here at the airport. A few of the challenges that we're running into with this is the range of our current battery electrics will not support our current routes without opportunity charging. This is charging between breaks and lunches and such for drivers. Again, due to the 24/7 nature of our business, meeting the in-service demands while incorporating a 1,000% increase in fueling to charging time is definitely something that as we move further into battery electrics and zero emissions buses, we're going to have to mitigate and figure out how to deal with. Internal long-term planning of charging infrastructure is very difficult as the technologies continue to evolve and everything's changing by the minute. Charger reliability has been an issue with us, and it prevents us from charging our battery electrics all at once. We're often forced to rotate them on very limited chargers. Lack of on-site tech support for charging and troubleshooting and maintenance training has been an issue as well that we're trying to work with. And again, just like everybody, competitive funding for infrastructure and replacement buses is going to be a challenge.
Okay, thanks, Serenity. So I think that we've seen that there's a lot of the challenges are shared across all these different kinds of operations here. Everybody for sure mentioned range as a challenge that's no surprise. It's been the challenge since the very beginning of electric vehicles. Both StarMetro and Sacramento have interest at least in smaller types of buses like shuttles and paratransit, cutaway type of buses. Charging costs have been a concern, and portable backup power, that's something we've heard from StarMetro, but we've also heard from many other transit agencies as well. Charger reliability, we heard that at two of these properties. Charging time, charger sharing, we're going to kind of combine those together today. Infrastructure upgrades are a common theme, but probably something we're not going to touch on too much today because we don't have a utility on the panel. Public buy-in, Gaylord mentioned. And then we have these, everybody has mentioned the difficulty in planning. I think that's kind of inherent when we have a technology that's changing so quickly. If I may say that, that's something CTE assists with. We try to stay up on this technology, and we help cities and whoever wants it deploy these vehicles. That's part of our mission. But this is not a commercial for CTE. That's not why we're here today. So we're going to move on. And grants, money is always an issue with these vehicles. But I think we're starting to see the prices decline, certainly from what they were just a few years back. So I'd like to invite all our panelists to turn on their cameras right now so we can begin the discussion. All right, great. And so let's start with the range issue, always the big one. I guess, John, your announcement today is going to at least help get us in the right direction. Walter mentioned he'd like to get away from en-route charging. So John, you want to kick us off and tell us what Proterra may have, what kind of solutions Proterra may have on range?
Sure, love to do that. And again, thank you, Dan and CTE. It's been a great partnership with you through the years and helping deploy zero emission buses throughout North America. This new product we announced today is the largest range bus in the industry. 660 kilowatts of storage is an awful lot. But I think the message I'd like to give is listening to the challenge statement that Walter gave. You're watching him transition from an early adopter. Foothill Transit, Reno, Tallahassee, StarMetro were those early adopters, and those were fast charge buses. And those buses didn't go very far. And as you see, he's now transitioning through that into a more extended range bus. And the new buses they have on order actually have pantograph rails, which you saw in our video that we just showed from Edmonton. And that allows you to do in-depot charging. And one of the things that we're doing at Proterra that I think is really important for the audience to hear is modeling your block schedules and your routes. That's something we're doing a lot of work on because we don't want to see customers overinvest on the bus side or the charger side. And I think if you, Matt, look at some of the reports that are out there on cost of charging and infrastructure, and cost of vehicles, those reports are probably a little dated. With this new technology, I think get a hold of your vendors, get a hold of CTE and those that can help maybe get you new information about what the range is on a new bus. The 660 will go over 300 miles. That can solve a lot of block schedule issues. And hopefully some of the in-depot charging solutions we have are definitely going to help Walter out with some planning that we're doing down there in Tallahassee with CTE and StarMetro.
All right. Thanks, John. We also, I guess range is also an issue, potentially an issue in the shuttle bus paratransit market, plus perhaps the lack of a Buy America qualified vehicle in the paratransit market. So Cash, I would love for you to catch us up on the latest developments there.
Yeah, so just quick intro, I'm Cash from Motive Power Systems. We do electric trucks and buses in the medium size. We've been building shuttle buses for a while. We just haven't done it in transit. And I'm glad to share that today we have a Buy America solution. We are working closely with the Forest River family, including the new factories they've acquired between Starcraft in Indiana, Champion in Michigan, and El Dorado in Kansas. We're working with them to market a Buy America compliant paratransit bus. It would have the same technology as we do on the road today. We've got over 1 million miles with over 100 vehicles, all kinds of configurations. So I know this has been it's been a gap in the market, but I'm glad to share that we have it today. So agencies planning for next year's deployment and beyond, please talk to us. There is options available today.
Great. And Nate, how about Lion? So we heard from Doug about 170-mile trips away. I guess I would imagine that's kind of a field trip operation, not the regular types of operation, but that sounds pretty ambitious. What do you think, Nate?
Well, when you look at range and just to kind of, if I can start by just kind of compounding on the thoughts John shared, when you look at the range of these vehicles, Lion Electric started in 2016, deployed some buses in Massachusetts that had 60 miles of range. You fast forward to today, we're over 155 miles, on our way to 200 miles of range, probably by next year. On the school bus, we're over that with other platforms like trucks. So when you look at this, the technology is only increasing over time. And again, when you're using that measuring stick, that's from an empty battery or an empty usable energy battery to full charge. When you're talking about school districts, you can charge midday. You can opportunity charge. Similarly, Doug, if you were to visit another school district and use their fueling facilities, you can do the same with electric. And opportunity charge while the track team is competing or the football team is competing, and expand that range another 20, 30 miles, which is huge, as Doug mentioned, which makes these school buses, shuttle buses more useful for so many purposes. And the electric bus today, and let's speak about this affirmatively, handles 95% of what the yellow school bus needs to cover right now. It's happening. It's been happening. This is a reality, and it's inevitable that all 500,000 school buses in the United States will be electric. And I believe sooner than more people think.
Okay, thanks, Nate. Let's bring the charger manufacturers into the discussion. Michael, we heard some issues with charger reliability. So how is Heliox addressing those kind of issues?
Heliox's approach really is to focus on uptime and reliability, and all of the charging infrastructure projects that we have installed, certainly in Europe and now in the States, that is a key focus of our installation, both for the technology and for the service and maintenance. Both of those factors are really important. The chargers are complex electromechanical equipment that are operated by humans, and so there is always the opportunity for the charger to go down. And so you really have to have, number one, a reliable, proven charger in the field, and that has to be backed up by adequate service and maintenance, whether that be by the transit themselves or by the charger manufacturer or by a third-party maintenance provider. Those two factors are key. So quality of the charger and the provision of service and maintenance to maintain an uptime. We aim for an uptime of around about 98%. Mostly we hit that, sometimes we don't. But that's a key factor for Heliox in our infrastructure developments.
Brian, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so, you know, in full transparency, early chargers that were deployed for us, and I think for many, were treated as projects. We've moved beyond that now. We are now deploying products that meet the stringent reliability and product quality testing requirements of Siemens. So we also are developing robust service plans, spare parts availability, and then in conjunction with that, we are also offering remote monitoring tools, remote diagnostic functionality, and even the ability to provide notifications when systems are not operating as they should, to obtain highly available and highly reliable systems.
Okay, and while we're on the subject of chargers, Walter mentioned this mutual aid, and you know, most of the time, of course, they're operating fixed route service. The buses stay pretty close to home, but if they need to offer mutual aid or take these special trips, that's been a problem. Michael, can you tell us anything about portable chargers and anything that may help Walter with these problems?
Yes, sure. So Heliox has two portable chargers. You are listed for the States, a 25 kilowatt portable and a 50 kilowatt portable, both on wheels and both movable and both very flexible and easy to use. And we're finding now these chargers are becoming extremely useful in a garage situation or in a workshop situation. They can be used as a backup charger in a depot situation where your fixed depot charger may go down. And we're also investigating the possibility of utilizing these chargers as an emergency charging device out on the road, but that really depends on combining it with a suitable battery. So yeah, the mobile chargers from Heliox are really a very flexible and useful charging tool, and maybe provide an interim solution for those transits that are thinking about electrification, maybe have one or two buses on order and don't want to spend that much on charging infrastructure initially. So that it gives them the opportunity to have a plug-and-play device which provides the charge capability that they need without the substantial infrastructure cost of a fixed charging system.
Okay. And Brian, we also heard about, well, actually, I hear all over the country when we're talking about battery electric buses, so we're trying to help people deploy them. This problem of what do we do if the power goes out? Resiliency, those sorts of things. And maybe it's not a fair question for a charger manufacturer, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Like in your mind, where does the solution to this lie? Is it some kind of battery buffering in the chargers? Is it microgrids at the depots? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure do. I mean, it may not be a fair question for a manufacturer that only makes chargers, but I work for Siemens, and we do everything from plug to grid. So we do have, in fact, a group that even offers distributed energy solutions and can implement systems with photovoltaic generation, battery energy storage, and even local other distributed energy traditional generating assets. All those things do require local microgrid control to optimize the use of those assets, but certainly you can minimize demand, utility demand, minimize utility costs, but it all comes at a price, right? You have to have a place to locate all those generating assets, but it is something that Siemens can and does offer.
Okay. All right, well, let's switch gears a second and throw it back to the bus manufacturers. One of the things we heard from our speakers today was about charging speed. And the reason I'm throwing that back to the bus OEMs is because I happen to know that Heliox and Siemens both can deliver to you a very high power charger, but it's a question of how fast can your bus accept that charge. So I think the problem, not really the problem per se, but the limitation is currently on the bus side. So Nate, let's start with you. What kind of charging solutions are you offering currently, and is there any thought of going to higher powered charging solutions that could charge faster?
Yeah, we already do that. So and again, we're probably most known for our school buses, but we also have truck platforms, which means level 2 charging alone isn't going to keep that truck on route, and has become more prevalent. There'll be a big announcement later today. Lion has signed an agreement with Amazon and will be putting trucks on the road this fall. So just to further reinforce the point that we do have faster charging solutions. However, with school districts, what we really have done, or our strategy that we think has been effective, is really to give them scalable or modular opportunities, not only for batteries, instead of a one-size-fits-all. With charging, there's level 2 charging. Many school districts are only running 50 miles a day. You don't necessarily need fast charging. Some districts do. Doug had mentioned earlier about using his bus for field trips. So we have some kind of median solutions at 24 kilowatt that are DC fast charging, so you don't need the onboard AC charger, all the way on up to 60, and we have pilots out there that are going to reach 200 kilowatts on a school bus platform very quickly. So again, it's really focused on the end user. What do you need? How fast do you need it to go? And what will your budget allow is another big thing. You can't just go to every school district in the country and say, we'll give you DC fast charging, because the grid may not be ready. And I think the grid side is really the bigger challenge. I think there's a lot of charging capabilities out there. I think the vehicles can handle them, but what is available at that site from the standpoint of the utility, and how quickly can it be deployed?
Okay. And just curious, any thought about overhead charging for school buses? I know that's an awfully expensive proposition in a very cost-sensitive market, but just have to ask.
Yeah, and there are different vehicle specifications, transit versus school bus, and putting things on the roof isn't consistent with a lot of the national standards or even the federal standards for school buses. So it's difficult to start throwing things up on top of a school bus. The specifications currently don't allow for it. But other charging opportunities while en route, coordinating with transit and trucking fleets to charge while en route, I think that's going to be a next step. But we're still taking a very close look at, charging pads, if specs change. And the industry, we are seeing some indicators that the school bus industry is starting to loosen up and accept some modifications to their specifications, because deployments are increasing across the country.
So just while you said overhead may not be a good option for school buses, it just made me think inductive charging. Is that something that?
Yeah, so when I said charging pad, I was referring to charging. Sorry about that. But yeah, sure. Absolutely inductive. While school buses sit at school sites, it's predictable, it's planned. There are a lot of opportunities for that. So that's really interesting.
Okay. All right, thanks. I thought you said charging path, so thanks for clarifying. So Cash, can you speak to charging speed on your vehicles?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we deployed our first medium cutaway bus 5 years ago, we deployed it with level 2 15 kilowatt charging. Over the years, we've seen several chargers from Asia come here with 6 kilowatt, 7 kilowatt, lower end of the level 2 charging. It's just not fast enough. It's not going to work for most applications. We have now launched 19 kilowatt level 2 charging, which we feel like really works for a lot of deployments. Having said that, for many deployments, you're going to need that DC fast charge. So for DC fast charge, we're offering up to 60 kilowatts. We are looking into 100 kilowatts and above. Right now, we haven't seen the business case make sense for the cutaway size bus. We feel like with 50 to 60 kilowatts, it makes sense. But I must add that our solution isn't always to go for the highest charging option. We want to right size the charging solution for each case. We've done several deployments for trucks where we've gone to the depot and confirmed there's enough power available, but looking at the routes and the times, there's just no need to waste that money. And we have right-sized it to 15 kilowatts, 17, 12, whatever really makes sense. Because a lot of times it isn't just about the additional cost about the charge station, but it's also the whole facility upgrade and the complexity that project brings to your deployment. If you can avoid it in some cases, it's good to do that. So our solution is right-sizing it. We have level 2 to 19 and level 3 to 60 available today.
Okay, thanks. So John, you have a 660 kilowatt hour bus. I guess you have a couple of them now. That's a lot of energy to replace. So, and I noticed on your video, you're really pushing the idea of in-depot overhead charging. Do you feel like that's a better fit for these really high capacity buses?
It just really depends on the application of the customer. In Edmonton's case, that was what fit them best. But I'd like to go, Matt, quickly backwards to resiliency. And one of the points that Walter made, and he and I live about an hour from each other, and we get a lot of storms during this time of year. We're watching Sally right now in the Gulf, and our batteries are a really integral part of our vehicle. Not only are they cylindrical cells, they're very safe, but they allow us to stack the batteries in a depot 9 high and create 1 megawatt of storage. So we do have a second life program at Proterra that we'll be launching, which helps in the cases, Walter, where you and I have these storms that come through the Gulf. But on the side of what's going on the bus side, the ZX5 now is an 800 volt bus. So we've gone from 400 volts to 800 volts, meaning we can charge this bus very fast. And as you guys know, we partner with Siemens and with Heliox and others on charging, but we also have our own chargers that are 75 kilowatt, 150, all the way up to 500. And in the middle of our state of charge, Matt, we can accept on our new bus 460 kilowatts of charge. So we can really charge a bus very, very fast. And that's what Walter needs. And quite frankly, that's what Serenity needs, is to be able to come in there with a bus, charge it quickly, and get it back on the road, almost to where they're close to what a diesel bus can do. That's really what the aim is out in the industry today. So I hope from a technical standpoint that helps clear up a little bit about what's on the bus side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I know you understand this already, John, but for our audience who may not have quite gotten it, that change from 400 to 800 volts is a big deal, particularly for plug-in charging, where
Yes.
there's a current limitation. So that basically is going to double the amount of power that bus can take. So that's.
Well, when you say double, we also have chargers now that have multiple dispensers. Mm-hmm. And one of our deployments we're doing in Miami right now, for 75 buses and chargers, they're actually able to charge 150 buses. So that's really important when it comes to cost for a transit system to look at or a customer.
Okay, great. So we heard Walter say something about 25 pantographs and how that might be a problem. Who would like to address that comment?
I'd be happy to. Brian Pollock with Siemens.
Go ahead, Brian.
So certainly pantographs can be deployed in depots, and they are designed for ceiling or gantry mount applications. The only word of caution is, although we have solutions that allow for positive bus pairing in depot when pantographs are in close proximity, there is no standard yet to define how it should be done. So I know my colleague Michael from Heliox will say they can do it. I know they can do it. We just both do it differently. So know that as you deploy early depot pantograph solutions, you may be adapting a solution or employing a solution that doesn't utilize a standard because no standard exists yet today.
Yeah, I'd just like to reinforce that. The standard is in development, but that's a long process. And I think all of the manufacturers are aiming for a technical solution that works and works reliably and works in the long term. And we will get there. You know, as Brian said, Heliox has a IRPLC methodology. I think you guys at Siemens have something different. And I think at some stage, just with the plug-in standard and the pantograph standard, we'll get a standard in place that provides the solution that the customers need.
Yeah, and the good news is the 3105 committee has, or I should say, has a subcommittee on the topic, so they're starting to address it.
Yeah.
All right, outstanding. So Walter, what do you think? You have any questions based on what you've heard while you've got these guys in the hot seat?
Yeah, just move a little quicker, please.
Same question for you, Serenity. Based on what you've heard, what's your reaction?
Yeah, we're just really looking forward to the future and everything that is to come. The ZX5 is a very exciting announcement, and we know that there's going to be plenty more right behind it. So,
if I might just say, add a little bit more to John's comments about redundancy. And I think when you're planning your infrastructure, there's obviously a cost involved, and cost control is important, but certainly when you're planning your infrastructure, think about redundancy, think about the possibility of having maybe one extra charger, or so that you give yourself that possibility of 100% or close to 100% uptime. Redundancy is a really important consideration when planning charging infrastructure.
And Doug, do you have any last comments? You may get the last word here.
This is fairly new to the school bus industry, and I'm really glad that we're on the cutting edge of it. When I say you need support, we had support from our superintendent and our school board. And I continually educate the public. I've educated our EMS, our fire department. Anytime I get a chance, I take people for a ride and I just talk about them, because this is the future. And I think this is where we have to go. And this is really a good thing.
Wow, what a perfect way to end the session. So I'd like to thank everybody who, on the panel, everybody who joined us today from wherever in the world you were joining us. I think this was a great discussion. I'm going to turn it back over to Dan Raudebaugh, who's going to tell us what's next.
All right, thanks, Matt, and thanks again to the panel. I just got a couple things. One, I want to thank our sponsors. I know Proterra sponsored this session. We've got sponsors for each one of the sessions listing as a presenting sponsors, and then we've got some networking sessions as well. So I wanted to get their logos up here so you could thank them for helping CTE to put this together. And then I just want to point our attention to the next session, which will be at 3 p.m. Eastern time, and it's on full fleet transition planning for both transit, school, and airports. And transition planning is looking at your entire fleet and what it would take to convert that fleet to entirely zero-emission vehicles. CT is working, I think, with about 22 or 23 transit agencies to do that. I know many, many more are looking at that. And many are looking at it outside of the state of California where it's mandated. So this is something that the industry is moving towards. And we hope to see you back online again at 3 p.m. Eastern. Thank you.